Just a few seconds left here. 7, 6 left. Freiberg goes for the kill. He's going to pick it up. If Just Exists survives, he's going to win the round. There's no time. Oh my God, Freiberg, are you kidding me? They win the round because of it. Yeah, now Freiberg is going to be walking around there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to By the Numbers, the realest podcast in CSGO. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. My co-host is Duncan Thorin Shields. Obviously, we've been away for a while. I've been doing E-League. Duncan's been in Amsterdam doing Duncan things, watching TSM go out of Worlds and League of Legends with a 9-foot erection. So we get to come back and get to talk about Counter-Strike now, and there's plenty to talk about. I'll start with some pleasantries, Duncan, as I sound a bit like DDK here, don't I? As is common on Earth. How have you been?
Mate, I would love to see a conversation between DDK and fucking Mark Zuckerberg. Imagine that. It'd be outrageous, wouldn't it?
It'd be like watching two AIs.
It would, except less convincing.
But yeah, so everything good. Obviously, you were fresh, TSM. Yeah. I saw you out on the streets, I assume, of Amsterdam. Yeah, I think to myself.
And at the end, if you notice, I swung it into the sun to do like a cinematic J.J. Abrams-esque lens flare as the climactic note was hit. So, become a director in many ways, become an artist.
I always thought you were, mate. I always thought you were.
No, that's what it's. I've become an artist now, Rich. So.
That's an edgy joke. I like it. Good start. So timestamp that. No, I don't think we need to timestamp it when it's self-deprecating. But look, so let's start by talking just about the big thing, E-League, that happened. Obviously, I was out there doing the playoffs. Yanko got to make his E-League debut, did a very good job too. Super happy about that. Turns out American audiences do like Ivan Drago after all. Who knew? And we had a really good time and some great games. But we'll start by talking about FaZe, obviously. I've been saying on the podcast for a while, I felt it was inevitable that FaZe would go on to be the #1 team in the world. They were able to beat Astralis in the final with an amazing comeback on the first map on Cash, which was a total crazy curveball that Karrigan threw in there that nearly backfired horrendously. So they were able to 2-0 them. And they didn't drop a single map in the whole of E-League. So when you combine that with their dominant performance at ESL 1 New York, where the average rounds that they gave up per game was like 7 point something, are we now in a place where we can safely say FaZe are the #1 team in the world, Duncan?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, the thing about it as well is, part of the reason I also, what's funny is the entire experience I've had with this new FaZe lineup has sort of been like having to completely make new models for every way of thinking about Counter-Strike. Like I said on the last week's show, the lineup almost doesn't even make sense. But then again, no one's ever had as ridiculous a lineup. Even when in the past you put star players together, they're all from the same country. Or when we say star player, we don't literally mean like all were the #1 player in the world in the past. So everything about this FaZe lineup requires a new way of thinking about the game, I feel like. And so part of you wants to say, well, I mean, they've only been to 3 tournaments, and yeah, they've won 2 of them. But even so, normally you normally still try to be a bit cautious. I don't want to go too overboard saying it. But when you've won 2 of the tournaments without losing a map, and as you say, the margin of victory is ridiculous. You're winning essentially every map you play at this point in time, and against every opponent. You actually kind of have to go the other way and go, no, we have to fast track you. You are clearly the best team, and it literally looks like we even have to fast track the conversation about will this be a FaZe era? I mean, at the moment, you'd be more hard pressed to say why it wouldn't, I think.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I made this point on the broadcast. This is a great time to be peaking if you think about kind of how long these eras last. Yeah. They're in this indomitable form right now. Obviously, it's January when the major's going to start. And I feel that they're getting... they're starting to get this incredibly large map pool, which is why Karrigan can throw in something like Cash, not a map they usually go to, not a map they usually play. He said there was going to be some mind games against Astralis, took away their train, and then just, here's Cash. Let's just do it, and let's see what happens. And I think the difference between FaZe now and the FaZe that first came onto the scene is that they're getting closer to that fabled 7 strong map pool, you know? Now, obviously, there'll be a curveball because we know Valve will release Dust 2 probably 3 weeks before the major comes out or whatever, as is tradition. But still, there's few maps in World Counter-Strike that have that 7 map pool. And Astralis kind of, but not. And then SK don't, because we know they've got all these problems with Nuke and Inferno. Yeah. So FaZe are making an argument that they're not just getting by on talent anymore. It's not just about having 5 players that can all put up frags when things go wrong. They have that. It's a great luxury to have, but Karrigan's fucking turning into the king of map vetoes because every team he's on, he makes sure you get at least 6 maps you're competent or world beaters on, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like his philosophy as an in-game leader. Like, the reason why it almost feels like he's the perfect in-game leader for FaZe is because, obviously, when you make these roster moves that they have, so he came into the team, remember, they still had talent when he first joined the team, like Jacob, Kiyashima, AZ, Ray. That's a pretty fucking good set of players right there. But they were all players who had their issues or other people hadn't figured out how to use them best. 2 things he has as an in-game leader that are amazing qualities is, first of all, his ability to sort of cobble something together overnight is outrageous. Like, he's the guy where if you just gave him like an all-star team, like 4 different really sick players, and you were like, right, figure out some way that this would work if you had to play a tournament tomorrow, he'd be one of the best in-game leaders at doing it. I mean, you just look at the teams he's had. Every team he comes in, they instantly get better. It's not like
he literally did that with FaZe as well at the first D-League. When he came in at short notice and was able to get them into playoffs, you know.
And then also the other factor is, like you say here, it's not a coincidence because he's done it now with so many different players in these lineups. Every lineup he gets moves out to like 6 maps legitimately. And part of the reason why is because I'm someone who always stresses the map veto, but I realize why fans don't think it's that big a deal and think I'm overhyping it, because they look at most map vetoes and a lot of them go quite by the numbers. You know, you expect they're going to ban this and then they're going to pick this, and a lot of people do that. But what they don't get is that at the top level, the best teams of all time often have this quality actually that he has, where you get 6 or 7 maps, and therefore, because you're good enough on your 3rd or 4th best map, you actually can start just fucking with the opponent and just being like, I know logically I should pick map A, you should pick map B, you know, we're both good on them. Instead, I'm going to pick what's actually my C or D choice, just because I know it's your E choice, you know, like you want to ban F, so I'm going to go with E or whatever. You know, that's how you can fuck with them. And he's just done it so many times now that whether your team wins the series or not, that's on how they play. But his ability to get like an edge in those pick man, it's ridiculous because he's doing it against the best teams in the world as well. Like, you play against Astralis, they're the team who can usually do that against their opponent. But he's now done this in both of these FaZe eras. He's just managed to constantly get like a little edge or throw a curveball in there, like you say. Like, again, if you're Astralis, they legitimately can play 6 maps. But somehow he always gets some little edge on them where they're never quite expecting the map. Therefore, a team like them who's relying on prep, they can't really expect that. Like think about it logically in this one they played in the final here. If you're Astralis, right, you know how to play Cash. You played a bunch now and you've always had some good performances. But you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to ban Cobblestone, and he is literally something ridiculous like 6-0 on Mirage. Yeah. So surely he's going to pick Mirage, right? And in fact, you know what? The day before, we even like lost to Mirage. I'm trying to think who they lost to Mirage to. I think they lost to Mirage to... I think Team Liquid they've lost to. They might have even lost to C9, was it? Yes, they did. Yeah. So you'd think logically, well, he should logically pick that. But that's why Karrigan's a genius. Because what he does is he goes, well, if I do pick that, which is my best map, by the way, I probably would win it, but you can spend all night long prepping for my Mirage. So you know what? Instead, why don't I pick a map that I've basically almost never played? They played it once against shitty Virtus Pro at ESL New York. How are you ever going to prep for that? And it's not even your best map anyway. So, like, even though, by the way, massive props to Astralis for almost winning that map, certainly. Yeah. But again, what a genius little gambit, you know. Why give them a strong map for their opener?
Well, that's the thing. I've talked to a lot of in-game leaders. So first of all, what people need to remember historically, because I know we get newer fans coming in, Karrigan wasn't an in-game leader by trade. So in-game leadership terms, it's something he's like relatively new to. And the only thing I can think of that's analogous to it that I've seen before is Existence, who was never an in-game leader when he first started playing in Source. He was an AWPer. He was like the flamboyant, carry of the teams he was in. Used to do what you can go and find all of his frag movies if you don't believe me. He was like a god tier AWPer. But then as his reactions started to like fade and ease off, and there was an absence of in-game leaders in kind of the French scene that could implement a tactical approach, because you had basically you had KRL, Hearts, the old 1.6 guy, and Regnum were your go-to in-game leaders. So Existence identified that there was this requirement in not only would it be good for the scene, it'd be very good for him career-wise. So he went away and he full Dr. Dre went in the lab on this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, he's just watching demos every day. He used to turn up with fucking iPads and reel off just pages of tactics to his teams. Anyone who's played with Existence will tell you he was a very methodical guy. And sure, lo and behold, his AWPing skill did drop off, but he was invaluable, and he's still hanging in there with LDLC. He's still in the fringe, tier 2 teams. Says he doesn't want to retire until he wins a major. I don't think it's ever going to happen for him, but he's still an incredible in-game leader and one of the best we've had in the game. Karrigan's story is a lot like that now, because he's gone from being a player who was just a regular, when he was in mouse sports, even in CSGO, he was like a fragger, he was meant to be out there killing, secondary AWPer in teams when needed on certain maps. And then he started saying, I think as I'm getting older, I want to pick up the ropes and learn in-game leadership. He learned a lot from God B, so he said. But when he went out there as an in-game leader, he was doing it all by himself. It was on a wing and a prayer when he said to the Danes, look, I'll be the in-game leader of this team, It could have completely backfired. It could have been completely dog shit. But slowly but surely...
I believe he actually said, I think he said this in my interview with him, that it was only something like a few days before he got that offer to join. At the time, it was Dignitas, but it's obviously Astralis now, that he literally, at the time... was going to just retire, I think. He said that he'd actually realised he was never going to be... Because here's the problem. He wasn't as good a player in CSGO individually as he was in 1.6. So he thought to himself, right, well, I mean, unless I can become the in-game leader of one of the best Danish teams, there's nothing left for me, is there? No point being just an average player on... At the time, remember, there was no third and fourth Danish teams that could have a salary like Heroic and still be a big damn team. If you weren't on the top two teams, basically it's over for you. You're just a semi-pro at that point.
And, it's funny as well, because other in-game leaders, I've talked to a few, and they're like, oh, we don't rate Karrigan as an in-game leader. We don't think he's very good. He's just been lucky because he's played with all these amazing players. And if you put him on a shit team, he wouldn't be able to lift them up, which I think is...
I think he's proved that wrong with that first FaZe lineup.
Yeah.
That was a lineup full of people, except Rain.
I think he proved it wrong with the first set of Danes he worked with.
Sure. I mean, he instantly took them to the level where they were winning, right? So, yeah. No, here's the funny thing, though. I actually have heard similar things also, that the guys who are the tenured in-game leaders and some of the ones who are actually very, very tactical guys, some of them think he kind of doesn't have those chops like that. But one thing I'll say that is very telling for me about Karrigan, it'll sound like this is a compliment to myself, but he's one of those people where when you talk to him privately, about other teams, so essentially you're both just barbershop talking about this team and what you think of that player and stuff. He is the closest I've ever seen among in-game leaders to basically how people who do analysis desk talk about how they model the game, which teams they think are good, what reasons why. Him and Sean Gares are the two that I think, from talking to him privately, were the closest to that. So the reason why I think that's really good as a sign is because too many of the in-game leaders are just in their own little bubble, someone like an MSL in his own way is brilliant, but he lives in his own little bubble, and you have to, the only way you can talk to him is you have to enter his world and adopt sort of the paradigm of his world. And then you can have a conversation with him. But if you come in from I've got totally different opinions, you'll never make any headway, whereas Karrigan is a very reasonable guy. So I get the feeling that's why he's done such a good job with so many different talented players. And then he gets so many good maps, etc. Because he's just someone who actually has he doesn't get too obsessed with the idea that if something's not working, I secretly do know how it works, just everyone else is doing it wrong. He's not that sort of guy, He's very, very kind of even keeled, I'd say.
Yeah, very much so. So the question I was going with all of this being said is, has he now cemented his position as one of the greatest in-game leaders we've had in CSGO? And if so, whereabouts is he?
I think so. I mean, here's a great metric, okay? I personally, this might sound like an outrageous statement, but I personally don't think majors are like the number one criteria to judge the best players or leaders in CSGO. Because if you look, a lot of truly great players didn't win the major during their peak or during their prime. Like some of them kind of got one at the end or got one when they were in a team that was like everyone was really good in it. Or, you know, the majors actually, because there's so few of them, aren't that great as a telling point. But actually, if you look at like 250k or more tournaments, that status we created in 2015, they're pretty good actually, because we have so many of them, especially now, that if you go by how many like finals people have been in and top fours, you'll get pretty close to like who the best players of all time are, basically, because it's so tough to get deep in those tournaments because they're the ones that all the teams attend. And think about this detail, right? So Karrigan, first of all, there weren't many 250k tournaments, admittedly, in the TSM days, but he won a lot of tournaments at that time that were like the equivalent of them. You know, they were still very stacked, had good prize money. Then he went to the FaZe when they got Nico, won a 250k tournament there because he won the Star Series tournament. Now he's got another, almost like half the team changed again. He's won another 250k or more tournament. Like the guy has, with 3 different lineups, in some cases drastically different, won these biggest tournaments in the world. That's fucking insane shit. So how could he not be one of the best? Put it this way, it would take some massive coincidence of like luck and good timing. And even then, I don't know if you could win with that many different teams, you know. Like for me, the lucky in-game leaders are more the ones who they just had like one really good team and they did have the right players at the right time. And they probably were decent still, but maybe they got lifted up a little bit, you know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you see people who say that Pronax wasn't one of the great in-game leaders, right? Despite having played on that dominant Fnatic side.
And I kind of buy into that a little bit, though.
Yeah, okay. So give me the difference, because
here's the first distinction I would make, right? If you're one of the people who believes in the concept that majors make you the best, well, then he is like the consensus number one of all time. So that's the problem immediately, is that I can't go down that path. Like, I definitely don't think that alone means it. But here's the problem with Pronax, I've always thought. I've actually never thought he was the best in-game leader at any point in time. But I've always thought when he was in those Fnatic teams, I thought he was pretty good. Like, I thought he was like a top 3, top 4 guy, you know. But I do think he had almost a perfect team for his style of in-game leading. And I think also, this will sound harsh, but I'll give you a contrast to sports, okay? Right? There have been a number of different coaches, managers who can win with like Messi and Ronaldo, right? But if that Pep Guardiola guy only had stayed at Barcelona for Messi's entire career, there'd be a lot of people who'd say, oh, we'll never know, you know, how much is him, how much is Messi, how much does he help set up the team? But now we know, because he left, yes, he was a very good coach. Is he the best coach in the world? Was he the best coach of all time? Probably debatable. Whereas you look now, Messi did do sort of the same stuff without him. I feel like that's kind of how it is with Pronax. Like, I'm not saying there's another in-game leader from Sweden who would have got the same success. I don't really know, but I think there are a lot of in-game leaders that if you'd have given them that fucking Olaf Meister, who was like not only your best player but also like ridiculous playmaker, unbelievable confidence level, I think there's a lot of people could have done special things with him. Maybe different special things, but you know what I mean. That's like the distinction for me.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think lots of things have kind of come out of this FaZe dominant. As I said, I think we're heading towards FaZe being the number one team. I think they'll be there, certainly going into the major. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially with other issues with other teams. I don't really see anybody that could stand toe to toe with them now. You know, I mean, like, Astralis didn't even do what North did, for example. North at least took them to double figures. It was a real fucking shame that what happened with the, you know, I'll say this, with the client and everything.
Yeah, that did fuck both teams, I would guess.
Yeah, you know, and it sucks. Like I said to the guys, you know, I pulled them to one side, the North guys, and was like, you know, because obviously I know all the fucking Danes. You know, I like, sorry about that. Yeah, they weren't able to take timeouts or something. And that definitely has an impact, especially after a long pause. You know what it's like when you had the momentum, North were in the lead, and then there's a long pause and it breaks that up. And then when you come back, it's not just that you've come back from a long pause, it's that not everything is right. So immediately you're off kilter. So I can imagine that would definitely fuck with them. Sure, it was the same for FaZe, and FaZe were able to adjust better. But again, this comes down to, you've got Karrigan the difference between Karrigan and MSL. And one of MSL's Achilles' heels, I always think, is that he always mind fucks himself and believes in like superstitions and conspiracies almost. Plus, he wasn't feeling very well.
Plus, he's a fucking whiner. Like, let's be real. Yeah. So the problem is, there's a certain type of person that, forget esports, we all know them in life. As soon as something goes a little bit wrong for them, it's almost like they do go, right, save that in my back pocket. And then it's almost like they're waiting for the whole thing to fail. And they go, it was my fault, see this thing? Yeah, things went badly. Whereas, like, obviously, the distinction we're making here is the people who tend to be the best of all time and the greatest winners, they can win even when the things go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of a key distinction, I think.
Yeah, so, it's like I've always said, like, I think MSL's a good in-game leader for tactics. I think he's got a great eye for talent. I think he knows how to use people. I think he's authoritarian enough without going overboard, like, say, someone like Zeus, who would never be able to play in a European lineup, for example, or an American lineup especially. Let's assume he had no problems linguistically. Sure. Culturally, he could never fit into any of those other lineups. But North... certainly have the right kind of mindset to work with MSL. But yeah, like it's always been one of his weaknesses as I see it. He tweeted going into the game, I'm bloody just got ill 3 hours before. We brought it up on a broadcast. I was like, come on, Matthias, man, you're better than that. Hide it. Keep your cards close to your chest, But anyway, that doesn't absolve anyone of any of the fuck-ups.
By the way, for anyone who didn't watch, okay, because I know a lot of people don't go back and watch the VODs, if they catch it live, they catch it live, right? That is a game, that semi-final, FaZe North, where don't go and look at the game scores, because the game scores were 16-12 first map, 16-10 second map. That sounds like it was like a comfortable win. Yeah. That was in no way a comfortable win. Like, here's the setup. FaZe wins every pistol, and yet we're still talking double digits for North on every map, and North's doing it with... They have good T-sides. They looked really solid. And that, to me, that was the real series where FaZe got pushed the most. I know Australia's almost won a map, but then they got their head smashed on the next map. So it doesn't really mean that much to me, This was the series where someone actually took it to FaZe big time.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think it'll be remembered for that. It wasn't like necessarily exciting or classic Counter-Strike, but it was good, solid fundamentals. And when you take into account the unfortunate tech issues combined with FaZe winning all the pistols, that's a series that could have been really close. If
I want to see that one again, put it that way. Yeah, that's one I'd like to run back and just see it the next tournament.
And Devil Walks jumped in the chat and just wanted to ask, since we've been rating in-game leaders, like whereabouts would you put MSL in that equation?
Well, here's the thing, actually. What we've just talked about is very helpful because I don't have to explain a lot of that. My problem with MSL is this. I actually think that there's a couple of things he is amazing at. Like, first of all, he is really, really fucking good at getting his teams on their like home map to be just amazing on the T side. Like whatever his home map is at any point in time. So at the moment, it's Cobble and Mirage. He would pick these maps against anyone, including FaZe, as we saw. That's because he gets these unreal T sides. So you can always rely on him to have a really good T half there. That's very rare, actually. Not a lot of people can kind of like tell you essentially. That's like the basketball player who can tell you, I'm going to take this shot here, by the way, like this. And you know it, and you're going to defend him perfectly, but you can still do it. That's sick. He is also pretty underrated for always having deep map pools in his teams. Yeah. So that tells me that he does both. First of all, he gets you to be a specialist on some maps, but then he also does enough to make you have a wide enough map. He just doesn't exploit it as much. The downside for MSL is, if I'm rating him holistically in terms of all in-game leaders, he comes with a lot of upsides, but he also has some quite glaring flaws for someone at his level. I mean, as you mentioned before, it's quite bizarre that someone who's got such good teams and such good qualities also is almost like defeatist. He has that quality to him. There's also, again, the fact that I think he just goes too far trying to be amazing at one thing. So, for example, he will pick Mirage into FaZe. Whereas in that setting where he's also got a deep map pool, every now and then I feel like I wish he'd just throw a wrinkle in, sometimes do a surprise himself, because I get that he's trying to be the guy where it's like, we'll win or we'll lose on execution. But sometimes you got to kind of give yourself a break and just have a surprise pick or do something weird. Because a team like FaZe, if anything, you want to throw them off. They're in such a sick rhythm right now on their good maps. You want to make them uncomfortable. Like, you want to pick train and see what the fuck they do with that, And so, my problem with him is I felt like he was, for the last year and a half, he's always been like a top 3, top 4 in-game leader for me, even if his teams weren't always at that level. But unlike a lot of the other people at his level, some of his flaws are just more obvious than other people's. You know, some of theirs that they're just not the best, but they're quite well rounded. He's like exceptional in some areas, and then in some areas, I just don't know why he never seems to work on those problems. You know.
Yeah, it's why I think, you know, people don't give enough props to their coach Rugger, because I think a lot of the time, obviously Rugger's played in teams, I think, with MSL back in Source, but I think what Casper does is he sort of is the guy that mitigates some of the conflict and flare-ups and maybe disagreements. I think he's the guy that sort of keeps team harmony. So I think MSL's an in-game leader that definitely benefits from having somebody else there. We saw how out of control it got when it was in Dignitas, right? Where it was like, right, pimp, you have displeased me. You are currently a top 5 rifler in Europe. You are now on the motherfucking AWP in your career. Yeah, it's like
that was pretty outrageous, yeah.
Yeah, but because there was no one there to stop him. You know, he was just in fucking, you know, the God tier mode of like, I can just do whatever the fuck I want. Meanwhile, poor Pip said, please, no, please, MSL, forgive me. And like, look what's happened to his career since then. Yeah. Motherfuckers streaming and selling hot dogs on a weekend, all because of MSL. Like, it's unreasonable.
It's like, listen, pimp, I am a fucking made man. You go against me, this is what you get.
Go get your
the
fucking
7th generation
shine box,
exactly,
motherfucker. Yeah. You got Billy Batst. So anyway, yeah, so that's MSL. Cloud9, while we're on the subject of leadership, my beloved Cloud9, obviously, couple of things happened this week, which makes our bet kind of a grim proposition. Well, it was good. It was going well because Team Liquid went out. They were in a much tougher group, of course. They were in the group of death, not my Cloud9. But Cloud9 did go further in E-League. So I was like, okay, I will be sure to bring this up when me and Thorin have our debate about who is the better team in NA in 3 months' time. But then they lost that Epicenter qualifier for the qualifier 2-0 the night before. So that was a factor. Then they came in, and I predicted them to beat Astralis. Started out very good. They won the first map, no problem. Then they were like something like 14-8, 14-9 up on Overpass, looking for the huge upset because Astralis had this 13-2 record on LAN in 2017 on Overpass. You know, they don't lose except to the best teams, and when they do, it's always a close series. Yes. So I was like, this is it. I'm going to stick it right in Duncan's ass. Right? No, I'm not Duncan because they fucking choked. They choked so bad, mate. And this was a legit choke. This was. Now, I won't say too much because obviously I was there. I went up to the guys after and talked to them. And obviously, don't repeat stuff. But they were despondent about the nature of the defeat, you know, because it's not so much that they got close on Overpass; it's that they just completely capitulated on Inferno.
Oh, that was terrible, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's part of the problem. Is like the way they lost there. Like, here's the thing as well. This is why I feel like teams like C9, well, this is what holds them back from getting the true props, right? Is that, think about some of the recent losses like Team Liquid had. So that loss that they had in E-League when they lost to SK, it was still so close. It was a game where even though they lost, you could be like, well, you did actually a lot of things right and you didn't really throw the game. They beat you and won the game. Mm-hmm. This is an example here of where I feel like C9, for some reason, always ends up having these results against Astralis and SK. And that's because they're two of the best teams at closing you out usually. And so if you get to the position where, in theory, you should win against most teams, if you then pressure gets to you and you make a bunch of mistakes, they will definitely capitalize on those mistakes. Like, you won't just go, like, they won't just go, oh, well, I guess we're just going to give up easily. It's like you have to put them away, you know. And unfortunately, I realize Cloud9 is still a young lineup, but they haven't been able to put people away in those situations.
No, definitely not. And here's the thing. I have got to say it. Like, Tarek has impressed me with his tactical approach, knowing how to use people. I thought he was underrated when he was doing it in Optic. I thought Optic looked pretty decent when he was doing that. And obviously, I know they've had other people kind of contribute to that. Here he is. He took the responsibility. You don't see a lot of players do that. Normally, when it's like, look, we've got this sick lineup. You're all known as being individually good in your roles, but we need an in-game leader. Who wants to do it? That's one of those cases where you see a lot of players take the backward step rather than the forward one, and it's the guy who minds it the least that ends up doing it, you know? I kind of feel almost that's what happened maybe a little bit in Liquid with Nitro ended up doing it. You know, I think it was more kind of a way to justify his role and Stan not wanting to do it anymore, or I don't know if they vetoed him out or whatever, but certainly in Cloud9, it was just like, yeah, we need someone. Who's it going to be? And Tarek said, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll take responsibility. So that's great. But here's the thing. When they were up against it and they were getting absolutely spanked on Inferno, they couldn't mentally reset after losing on Overpass 16-14 and throwing away a lead, where's the leadership coming from? And this is what I mean. Like, it's never going to be Tarek. You've met him. Yeah. I've met him. Tarek's not that guy. Tarek is a wonderful person, super cool to hang out with, like a funny dude, or as you describe him, a boring cunt. I guess, you know, there's a spectrum there. It's all good. But he's a nice dude. But he's never going to be the guy who's going to like pull you around and give you an inspirational speech, you know? Like, he's never going to be fucking, you know, Henry V, is he, before the Battle of Agincourt, whatever the fuck it was. Right? He's never going to do that. Now, you're like, okay, well, that's all right. They've got a coach there. It's fucking Valens, who, by the way, is so fucking quiet. Like, he just walks around with his hand in his pocket. He's like, all right, lads, like fucking Oasis there. You all right?
Not even one of the good ones in Oasis. He's that fucker who played the rhythm guitar or something, you know.
Yeah, the rhythm guitarist. Yeah, Bonehead. Yeah, all right, lads, you're all having a good fucking good time. Right?
Not Liam Gallagher and all, obviously.
No, not one of the good ones. He don't do shit. I've never seen him grab them round in a huddle. In fact, when they're having a huddle, he's not in it. So they need somebody. I don't know. Like, he's just usually stood in the background watching, like, yeah, that's a good huddle, that, lads. Keep it up. I'll see you on the B side. You know what I mean? So, like, here's the thing. Like, keep in mind, I've got nothing against Valens. Again, I'm sure he's a lovely lad. But he's only, like, kind of, like, recently transitioned into this role after just being an average middle-of-the-pack NA player. Like, where's his wealth of experience? Where's his tactical understanding? You know, apparently, by all accounts, he's really good at breaking down demos for people.
I've no doubt, but that's the problem, right? I agree, by the way. You look at this lineup top to bottom, start with the coach, because if you don't have it in a player, you can get a coach. Like, here's the thing. Whether or not, whatever Rugger and Zonic and these guys do, they definitely do that. They bring, like, a guy who's got experience, a guy who's been in the situation before, who can help emotionally control the team. They can do all these things. As you're saying, Valens basically probably should be an analyst. He should be the guy just watching the demos. So then you look at the lineup they have in Cloud9, right? Skadoodle, obviously, straight off the table. He's playing terribly and he doesn't talk anyway, so that's out. He can't be a leader. Stewie 2K is the only person I think has the temperament for it, but he's also way too young. Like, I actually think one of the reasons why Cloud9 hit like a very quick ceiling when Stewie 2K was the in-game leader is because he hadn't even played 1 year as a pro. Like, when he's telling his guys, dude, we got this. Don't worry, just do what I'm saying. You could literally just turn to him and go, well, the fuck would you know? What's he going to say to that? Yeah, you're right. 3 months ago, I was in a fucking ESEA pug. You're right. How do I know? I'm just making shit up, aren't I? Like, it's great to be confident, but the problem is people quickly find out if there's sort of nothing behind it, you know, like, you're just confident because you personally think you're going to do well. Automatic, unfortunately, has also shown himself to be a bit more of like a reserved character, like, certainly talks, but he doesn't seem like a fiery element to him, you know, he doesn't seem like a leader in that sense. Bizarrely, I don't think there is anyone in this team. I can't think of a single person who has natural leadership qualities.
Now, interestingly, I don't know who it would be. I don't know who you'd get, but like, I mean, like, whatever you think of Stunner, he's a bit of a wild cat. But like, he was somebody when he went out with Cloud9, he was at least capable of firing people up and standing behind them and, you know, telling people like, come on, we can fucking do this. A bit of motivation. Maybe it could be nothing. He's still technically on the books over at Cloud9. He's a veteran. He's experienced. All the players say they love him and we're sad to see him go. So maybe he can tap into it from a relationship perspective, even though the idea of like nothing shouting at everyone seems a bit, it's a bit of a fantasy, isn't it? It's not very likely.
Yeah.
But they do need somebody who's got leadership.
Well, here, that's the edge I think also that Team Liquid has on them. Team Liquid has Zeus. Like, I realized there was a lot of time where it looked like they were wasting Zeus. Like, either he couldn't do anything with the team or just, he was just collecting a check. But now that they've got a good team, now you see him fucking shine because that, like I say, they don't break down in those situations. That's actually the area where I'd rate Team Liquid as the big edge. They seem like they're pretty good in the closeout sessions of games. Now, Cloud9 has some mad firepower. Let's not be fucking beating around the bush on that. They have some really good players, but their problem is they're like an NA version of FaZe, but without the Karrigan.
Yeah. And that's the issue, right? And that's what I mean. That's why I believe in them. but they need somebody there. Like I think if you need Valence to go to an event, so when you're in those tournaments and you're doing those deep runs, he comes to your hotel room in the middle of the night with his laptop and is like, look, I've broke down all the tactics for you. This is the demo. This is the map they'll probably pick. This is why. These are the tendencies. Brilliant. Great to have that to go into the next game. But is he the cunt who's going to be stood behind you when the chips are down and everyone's heads up their arse? No, he fucking ain't at all, mate.
He's just like, just don't look back in anger and that, lad. You got to roll with it, haven't you?
Just roll with it. Be my fucking Wonderwall and that, like. It's bad, mate. He's not the guy. In fact, I couldn't even tell you what his voice sounds like.
You know what I've just realised? You know who they need, don't you?
Who?
Well, here's the genius. Because they've got Valence who's doing the analysis work, they only need someone who can be that voice, Richard. They need a man who, in a close game, will tell them to make their penises erect.
This is it. It's GB James.
He's back. He's back.
Let's make a play that makes your dick fucking hard. Let's go, lads. He probably can't say that to half of them. Isn't it a crime? They're all kids. But yeah, it's crazy. They need a leader. And it can be somebody stood behind them. Obviously, I think this lineup can still go places. I still believe them. I still think they'll outperform Team Liquid. That's the one area where they got to go. Like where they got to find a leader and replace Valence.
Richard, one thing though. Remember I told you that actually E-League Premier was unique in that it was one of the only tournaments where Skadoodle was averaging really good numbers. He successfully shit the bed so hard it brought the average for the tournament down to where he normally is.
Yeah, no, mental.
He averaged less than 10 kills a map.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, mate, it's mental though. Like, so here's the thing. I feel terrible doing this. I feel fucking terrible doing this because you got to understand, you'll never find anyone in the scene who's got a bad word to say about Scar.
You also can barely find anyone who knows the fucker.
Yeah, true, but he's a private guy. He's a quiet guy. I can fucking respect that. Not everyone can be as flamboyant and outrageous as you, Duncan.
I know.
You know what I mean? Not everyone can pull that off. And Tyler's like obviously a quiet dude. He's again. You don't judge people really by how many people you find will say something good about you. Sure. It is about how many people will say like, "Oh, that guy is an arsehole," No,
but I think this ties into it though, because part of my problem is this, and we've addressed this many times. But whenever people bring up these topics of nobody could be good, and if he just had the right people, right? The reason why nobody knows that. Because no one knows who this guy is. No one knows what his problems are, what his issues are. Apparently, his teammates don't mind as long as he just isn't an arsehole. That is not a requirement to be a pro player, right? Just don't be an arsehole. Well, do I need skill? Do I need to frag people? Nah, just be a cool guy. Come on, mate. That's what you want on a night out as the fourth guy in your posse. You don't want that in your fucking pro Counter-Strike team where you really do need people to kill people with the AWP,
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing, God, statistically, it's so bad. So let's put it into context. We know it was 16-12, then 16-14 to Astralis, so lots of rounds being played. Then they got bust the fuck up on Inferno 16-4. So out of, let's just do the math, 30, 58, 66, 70 rounds, I think that is. Yeah. So 70 rounds played. I hope I haven't fucked that up, because if I do, that's my intellectual card pulled for life. Can't do basic maths. I'm a words guy anyway. Sam should be adding up for me. That's how I think about it. But anyway, 70 rounds, 29 kills.
Doesn't cut it, does it?
Nah, not at all, mate.
Especially because, it's not even listen, there's players who have very low frag counts, so you can find reasons as to why they're contributing something to the team, something they're doing. Here's one thing I'd love to know, right? So people who are fans of Cloud9, I know a lot of them have come round on this issue, right? They have stopped being as ridiculous as when they used to defend Nothing and Shroud and Skadoodle all at the same time while the team wasn't doing well in lands. They're not as bad as that anymore, but anyone who thinks that Skadoodle contributes something important to this team, have a crack at it. Make some content. Make a video where you show us VODs and you go pause it. Right, watch what he does here. He didn't get the kill here, but he backed up, Tarek on this spot, and he got 2 kills because of how Skadoodle played it. Do that. Because, by the way, if you could pull it off and you did a really good job, I'm sure we'd all love to know it. It'd be very interesting. I just don't think you could do it. I think no one could actually, at this point in time, go to bat for this guy.
Yeah. I'm just re-adding it. I think I did get it wrong.
Let's have a look. So there was
78 rounds. It was. So there you go. So I did fuck it up. But don't matter. Point is, the higher the number, if I'm wrong, it's even better then, isn't it? Right? Like 100 rounds it was. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, 29 kills in that many rounds is ridiculous. And again, it's like you always say, we come back to the same argument. Primary AWPer, what's he going to do? You know, and it's like, these are the must-win games. If you think about the performance on Overpass specifically, think about how you need a dominant AWPer on Overpass. And that's one of the reasons FaZe can lock it down. It's one of Guardian's better maps statistically. Well, let's look at the numbers. 14 kills in a 30-round game on Overpass. Meanwhile, Device is dropping 23 and is leading from the front, Like, that's the difference right there. That's a difference maker. People can talk about the moment. Oh, you didn't check up on the corner on Monster when you go. People can talk about how brilliantly Astralis played it, how it was a great comeback or whatever. Bottom line is 1 or 2 more kills from a player who was adrift in the game turns a game that close on its head. It's that simple. And when again, I don't like sticking the boot in on the same fella week in, week out. It's weird. Like, I got nothing against the guy, but like, I still can't help but feel that if you just take the AWP away from him and give it to Stewie, if you have to, anybody really, if Tarek picks it up, and you just put another competent player there, just another decent player from NA. Like, if Cloud9 went out and got fucking Breezy or someone, right? Like, he's not a world-beating name, but statistically right now, motherfucker's on fire. And I think if you just bedded another young player in there and just had the system that you've got, somebody that didn't go distant in big games, I think Cloud9 actually get over that hump, and stop. It obviously stick to the leadership thing as well, It
ain't gonna happen though. Like, here's the bad news if you're a Cloud9 fan. The fact that they've had these top 4s ensures that ain't happening. They're just gonna stick with this lineup and ride it out. I'm just sure of it,
Yeah, more likely, other people in chat now are suggesting Sick, it could be a Sick, it could be a Breezy. The whole point is that what I'm saying is you could pick somebody who wasn't a world beater. Let's be real. Automatic was a fucking journeyman before he went to Cloud9. So I'm saying you could pick one of these periphery NA players for Skadoodle, and I think you actually raise their collective level a little bit. I hate to say it, but it's just the fucking truth. It statistically makes sense. So that was E-League. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about actually from E-League before we move on, and that was G2. Because this is when I really got fucking on the Cloud9 hype train, Okay. G2 had been in this fucking good run of form. Cloud9 fucking manhandled them, and they did it on Cobblestone, which is obviously G2's pick and one of their better maps.
Yep.
And they did it on Inferno as well. And what's mad about it is they managed to keep like Kenny S quiet. He didn't have like an amazing series, just about broke even. Shock's quiet as well. Like, they managed to just contain all of their star talents. And that was where Skadoodle was a fucking god. That's the madness of it. Skadoodle, to give you the opposite end of the fucking spectrum, top fragged in a game with Kenny S on the fucking, out-fragged him, out-fragged Shocks, out-fragged everyone else on Cloud9. How the fuck does that happen?
This series, though, like, here's the thing. If you notice in general, I'm not someone who goes super high on someone and then super low the next day. Like, I actually don't just abandon, because usually the reasons why I've decided I like a team are reasons that hold, whether you win or lose the game. The problem is, this actually was an example of where, as soon as I watched this game, I was like, I'm out on G2. Before I was telling you, I thought they could win the tournament, they could be the best team in the world. That was all contingent, if you remember, on what happened at DreamHack Malmo, which is part of the reason that they managed to make that incredible run through the tournament, was that they actually started doing real saves. If they didn't have money and they had like a dodgy force buy, they just wouldn't do it, which obviously that might sound like a normal concept to other people, but within the French scene, that is like the fucking eureka moment where you have like invented electricity or something, it's on that sort of a scale. And so I told you, after the tournament, Smiths made this comment, which I hoped was a joke. I thought he was trolling, where he implied that the only reason they did proper saves is because they'd been losing all the pistol rounds in the tournament. And so they thought that their force buys weren't going to work. Well, here's the thing. I thought he was trolling because I thought, well, you just won a massive tournament by doing this approach, so you'll at least stick with it again, right? Nah, they actually have gone back, Richard. And in this game here, they force bought like maniacs. Like to ridiculous levels where, you know, you're already in a hole. This reminds me of classic Envious with Happy, where when he used to have these players, he would do the same thing. You're at a breaking point in the game where you're already down too many rounds. And they use that logic, which is it just destroys my soul, Richards. What they say is they go, well, I was so far down that if I'd have not force bought then, I'd probably lose the game anyway. Yeah. And when you're shit at force buys, you now lose the game for sure.
Yeah, and this is the thing, man. It fucking wrecked Moses as well. The fact they did that, because we did, obviously we pre-plan our analysis segments, as you know, in the fucking production meeting, and like Moses was doing G2 because I think we wanted to put him on a non-American team, because you know how that goes down, and he was talking about it anyway, like saying, and the good thing about them is, they've said they're not going to force buy as much.
Yes.
They've really learned how to develop their economy a lot more. Smiths has been helping with that, and blah blah blah. Did this whole bit on how like they were now becoming the economic masters, that they could get a game by stranglehold, but when they were behind, they would be like, okay, we got to take a hit, and we'll lose two to win one important one and reset somebody. Didn't do any of that, of course. Like immediately, just like Moses was just like, please, like I'm in fucking hell. Like everything I've said, it's not happening, and it makes no sense because they were doing it and it was working for them. It was giving them that extra dimension in close games.
Yeah, and two things it did for their. What's crazy as well is two things it did within their team that literally made them a much better squad. Was one, it meant that Kenny S gets more AWPs. He's literally your best fucking player. Why would you not want him to have more AWPs? So he gets less AWPs in this game. Secondly, it made it so that their CT sides were a lot more even. Before that, right, what would happen was they would always do the mega risky force buys on CT side that if you fuck it up, mean that you have to have like a godlike T side. Now, sometimes they could pull that off because they have so much talent in this team. But by playing more economically solid, they were getting like, at worst case, like a decent CT side. Well, you look at this game here, you get 9 rounds on T side of Cobble and you lose the game 16-12. What the fuck are you playing at? This is your best map. G2 might legitimately be the best team in the world on Cobblestone. They're outrageously good. And they're just getting almost nothing on CT side. So, unfortunately, that's why I say I'm out on them. Because if they've just sort of literally decided that was a one-off, that doesn't matter, that Malmo tournament, and that they're going to go back to this approach, then there is no reason to assume they can be a top 2, top 3 team in the world. Yeah, they're going to be up and down again,
Yeah, but this has always been the problem. You think they're going to nail the inconsistency. They've got inconsistent players with inconsistent attitudes. The one thing that's got to be consistent has to be the approach and the philosophy of the game. And it's not going to be because, Smiths has decided, no, we actually need to do less of the thing that was working. Like, brilliant, great. So I never bought into the G2 hype. I still will refer to them as a super team. I think in terms of
just look at the players, right?
Yeah, right. But that's what I thought was hilarious. Like we've been calling them a super team for ages, and then Body did an interview, and he went, "There's no such thing as a super." Like the minute they start dropping off, and it's FaZe, and it's no such thing as a super team. There's just hard, bloody work. Fuck off. Tell that to FaZe's accountant, you cunt.
Speaking of which, let's go ahead and apply the same logic that we did with MSL. That's a quality that those French teams have that fucking sucks, right? They also have a few players in all those top French teams who have the shittest mentality ever, where they're just like, oh, we could not do anything, they just wrecked us. It's like, are you a fucking pro player? Your team has won majors. Like, literally, it's like the most defeatist attitude you've ever heard. Like, every time they lose. Like, that's why I always, in a way, I hate interviews with Shox and Apex. Because on some level, they're really intelligent in-game players. But then if you ever hear them talk about games, they just start using all these terms that like no analytical person would use. Like they were just feeling bad in the game and they didn't have the energy. And it's like, am I talking to some like 45-year-old woman who's trying to contact their dead husband or something in fucking Sedona, California using a crystal? Or are you actually playing the game? You're the in-game leader, you can't. What tactics were going wrong? As the energy was not much. What fucking, how many kilowatts of energy do you need, you daft little cunt? What measurement of energy? That's a scientific term. Stop fucking using it. Stop using scientific terms to just talk about your feelings, you fucking outrageous French bastard. I reeled it in, so it's all right. It's all right. I reeled it in at the end there.
Fuck you know, man. Oh God!
I bet that's why the fucking Germans almost just dominated France in World War II. They were like, "Well, I feel like the main line will hold." Well, do you fucking research it, you daft cunt? They've got tanks. They're just trees. They're just fucking trees. Anyway, that's France done. So
yeah, another nation on the card track, the no-fly list. Oh fucking hell! That killed me. Right. So there you go. So that G2 out of the running. It seems.
Yes.
So, yes.
Very much so.
Very much so. So let's talk a little bit about this, because the people have been kind of daring me, like, "Oh, you bet you won't talk about this," and like as if that's ever been a thing in any point in my career. Obviously, we've had the Cevo minor qualifiers going on, and been all sorts of madness occurring, like people just blatantly cheating and this sort of thing. Now, there was a couple of highlight moments that I'll definitely bring up with you. First of all, I've got to say this, and this isn't a popular idea. I'll get your thoughts on it. I fucking hate open qualifiers. I'm sorry. I don't like them. I think if the minor system is meant to be a road to the major, I think open qualifiers, you are literally just opening your doors to all the worst fucking elements. Like, you know, maybe I think there needs to be a criteria, like you're already in an existing league and you know, and you have been for X amount of time or something, just some set of base rules, not five cunts just signed up. You know?
Here's what would be a good compromise, Rich, with the concept that because here's the thing, the premise, the principle is a beautiful idea. It's that you could literally be a team of people from any country in the world who's never been to a LAN, but you compete and it turns out you're actually amazing. And we didn't know it, but you get to fast track the whole esports industry and you make the minor. That would be incredible. But is that worth the price of making teams like NIP have to play against people blatantly cheating, people who aren't even teams, who couldn't get visas to attend the event? This is just stupid. So what you should do, to me, the compromise, Rich, is just like with CS, we used to have it where you made the major or you went through an online qualifier. Then we brought in the major qualifier was online. Then we brought in the minors. This is all great, elaborations on the concept. Let's bring in another level where for the minor, there are qualifiers that all the real teams are in, even if they're not in the minor. And if you're these idiot teams with cheaters, right, at least you can only cheat now against the low-level pro teams or the semi-pro team. You know, let's put another level of abstraction in there, because it's going to happen no matter what if you make it open, unfortunately, as you've referenced there. You can't stop it. People can just come in and do whatever they want. And there are people, there's no point getting into the psychology of it. It's obvious that you will find some people in the world who will think open qualifier, I'm probably not going to make it, so I'll just cheat. Haha, who cares? This is funny. There'll always be people like that. Yeah, sure, but I don't want it to affect real pro teams who are now getting fucked over. And as we saw in this qualifier, you're constantly having to reset the bracket as you discover a team was cheating. It just seems silly, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's a 500 team open. It's not just like the open qualifier system is something. You've opened up to 500 teams. That's fucking, you know, there's got to, well, what about a first come, first served as well? Like, you know,
I agree. That's another thing. How about that? If you can't be a complete rank nobody, you have to at least, like, as you're saying, maybe you have to finish top 10 in some semi-pro league, which then earns you a slot into this open quality. You know, we can still make it open if you go far enough back, but you can't literally just sign up and start just aimbotting people through the wall like we saw in this qualifier.
Yeah. And here's the thing as well, right? So first of all, lots of people have been going, yeah, this is the worst bloody qualifier like this we've ever had. People, again, just mentally ill, no grasp of history. This has always been happening. The reason you're hearing about it more now is because this is how competitive the field has got. We have a number of semi-pro or actual pro teams having to go through this open qualifier system. And it is the first time in CSGO history it has been this deep. The field has been this deep, yes. Right? And that is why you're hearing about it, because those pro players that are feeling hard done by, the Dignitases, you know, whoever else it might be, they go onto social media and they're complaining about it, as they're well within their rights to do, by the way. I am not suggesting otherwise. So this is why we're hearing more about it this time. Anybody who's watched an open qualifier for any Counter-Strike event going all the way back to 1.6 knows this is the type of bullshit that goes on. It's not new. It's not that this one is particularly bad. It's that the bad things are affecting people further up the food chain than they ever have before.
And this one was exacerbated beyond anything I've seen before. And the reason why is because, as we saw, Valve announced the major so late that, for some of these qualifiers, you had a couple of days before people had to be registered and had to have the team in. So I made this point before. When everyone complains about finding a player who's cheating in the qualifier and it turns out he had a VAC ban in the past, right? How is the guy who is just a volunteer admin for an online open qualifier who'll probably never go to a LAN, how's that guy supposed to know all the players in the world and every single person's ban and somehow do a check? There's no database for him to check. There's nothing for him to go and look that through. Secondly, right, why would Valve, who ultimately are the ones responsible for the major, why would they just tell someone, oh, by the way, before when you ran the major, you used to have to just put on one LAN called the major. Well, now you have to put on the LAN, and depending on what region, you run this qualifier for the qualifier for it, and then I'm going to give other people the minor, and I'm going to give some people the minor qualifier for the minor, and then at this point in time, I'm going to let any human in the world sign up to compete. Is that enough logistics for a logistical nightmare for you there? What, can't you do that? How many staff do you think they have? Like 700 people. No one could do this.
Yeah, and look, there's been a few issues. Like, sure, but by no means do I feel it's been like ideally handled or anything like that. But it's like you say, these are huge logistical operations. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be aberrations. And equally as well, the community have done that thing where Cevo can't win. Now, look. Are there some things that just aren't acceptable? Like I saw a thread about an admin joking, haha, if you pay me some money, I thought you might find it funny. Haha, if you pay me some money, I'll put you through to the next round. Obviously, that's not acceptable.
Did a winky face, though.
It's all right. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, again, there's plenty of people love to pull out the winky face at the end, But
that absolves you of everything, I believe, in a legal setting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I did, in fact, use a winky face at the end. Yeah. Therefore, I would class my remarks as bawdy, perhaps audacious, but not criminal.
I'm going to allow this, and that's it, and you're out, right?
And then I moonwalk out the court.
Yeah, why not, Shimon? So look, that's all well and good, that's unacceptable. We deal with that. But then there was like the guy. Everyone was like, haha, this Romanian player is cheating. Look at his crazy shaky aim. A player who was added 6 days before to the roster. A player who. When they looked at his account, had left like a link to a VAC band account, which they're saying definitely wasn't his and was somebody else's. He took over the slot and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look good. And neither did his aim. It was shaking all over the fucking place. You know what I mean? And obviously, yes, there have been pro players in the past that have a similar aim style. Pex from Team Dynamic in America springs immediately to mind. Kierby's obviously the one everybody referenced. Didn't look anything like this. Am I saying that this guy was cheating? No, absolutely not. Loads of people are saying, oh, an admin manually banned him. Well, there's also some small print in tournaments, by the way, guys. Admin's decision is motherfucking final. Now, is it ideal that they're manually banning people? No. Do I support manual bannings? No. Would people have been outraged if it was a player further up the food chain? Yes. That had lobbied for him, that had been petitions, pro
players. Here's the thing, though, Rich, I've got a question for you. Because I know a lot of pro players were mad at this, the concept of manual bans, right? And they were saying it was outrageous. But this is a flaw I have with that concept, okay? Like, even when you say you're against it, I agree it's very, very dodgy area, because then you can get people who are friends of the player who ban you. There's lots of room for abuse. But let me give you a hypothetical, right? Sure. A guy in the game is not just cheating, he's like literally aimbotting. In fact, fuck it, he's speed hacking while he's doing it. He's moving around the map. But he doesn't have a VAC ban, and he hasn't been banned by VAC. If people are against the concept of manual bans, you have to let that guy play.
Yeah, but this
that's not cheating.
Exactly. This is the issue, isn't it?
That's why it's such a grey area, isn't it?
Yeah. Because what happened was like, look, back in the day, you know how it used to roll. You used to get banned off literally an admin review of a demo. Yes. Because anti-cheats, think of all the people who got banned from Clan Base, all the famous 1.6s. Think about guys like fucking Colon from Denmark who got banned in that national tournament. Swears to this day he never cheated. I think he did. Whatever. Doesn't really matter, though. It was all done by admin. And then what slowly started happening was, as the game got more and more popular and these cases became more and more high profile, people started saying, well, that could be me, like I wouldn't want to be banned if I just had a good game. And this is always the myth, isn't it? That, you're bloody getting banned for just having a good game, aren't you? And go watch your demos and you'll always have moments like this. And suddenly these things, which are actually lies, I mean, yes, there will be that one-off anomaly where you have a game where you're constantly lining up everybody and you guess all of your pre-fire is right correctly, and you never look in a spot where nobody is, right? Those games happen maybe once in a lifetime, probably never at all. If you see a player have a series of games like that, he is probably cheating. And that's how we used to do things back in the day. That if you were just having godlike reads and you never got it wrong, and there was too many coincidences to be within the realm of possibility, you got banned. And people didn't like it. So we moved away, and then we said, the anti-cheat is all. Well, unfortunately, most anti-cheats are garbage and dog shit because the level of permissions you need to be effective aren't reasonable to sign off to a random company.
Here's a problem though, Rich. That's another issue I wanted to address, right? Here's another problem. So the reason why I gave that analogy before of the idea that if you don't believe in manual bans, you can't ban the aim hacker, the speed hacker rather. Because in that scenario, if you don't ban that guy manually, you will now get shit for that. So you can't win either way if you're the admin.
Yeah.
Same applies here, though. This is what I want to bring up. Okay, let's imagine you're in a scenario where it's just like, wait a second. What were you just saying there? What was the last point?
About how... let me remember that basically you do it all off demo review, and then people we think the anti-cheat is big, and anti-cheats have to be intrusive.
So yes, that's the point. That is the point. Okay, so people complain like fuck when an app is intrusive, but at the same time they want anti-cheats that work. Right, here's the problem. If I'm Apex and you tell me I can't compete in $1 million tournament unless I have an intrusive app, I'm going to say, well, of course, I'm a pro player. It's no problem. Right? Which is it? Is it an open qualifier where you play under pro standards, in which case you better accept this intrusive app? Or are you just a random citizen of the world, and therefore why does everyone get access to your PC? Which is it? It has to be one or the other, ultimately, doesn't it? There's no middle ground between the two. So I agree. There's part of me wants to blame Valve and say, why are you putting on $1 million tournaments with no real anti-cheat? But at the same time, I know that there will be a million Reddit threads like, this can technically access what I'm saying on Skype. It's like, well, it has to, doesn't it?
Right, and let's be real. Why was the ESEA anti-cheat so effective? Did you read the court documents about them reading your Steam conversations? I know from talking to employees at ESEA, LPK used to regularly read pro players' Steam conversations and bring up issues off the back of that. One of the great dirty stories that never got hyped up, and one of the reasons why I've always had an issue ethically with ESEA, was when they heard about the iBuyPower throw, they had insider information because they had seen Steam conversations between the players, and they brought it up with an ESEA employee who was quietly pushed out because he was involved, and they told the players privately as well, yeah, we've read your chat, we've read your Steam chat. So that's how intrusive the ESEA anti-cheat is. And this is out there, and people just don't fucking remember it. We had that stuff with Gamers Club recently, putting malware, or certainly for the legal, ramifications, allegedly, whatever, because they're threatening to fucking sue everyone. Fuck it, come at me, I'll have a day in court, you cunts. The malware.
Your Honor, when I said malware, I did do a wiki fizz. Just bring me up as your expert witness.
And now over to my winky face expert, Duncan. He invented Beak Face in 2015.
Yeah.
He is
very popular.
Yeah,
all the kids love it.
So, lots of anti-cheats work this way, and everybody said it. The only way you're ever going to play in a cheat-free environment is if you give somebody effectively complete access to the permissions on your computer. Well, I'm sorry. Nah, I don't want ESL knowing what my Pornhub searches are. I'm sorry, I don't want a piece of software on my computer that can record my microphone. I have fucking sensitive conversations on a daily basis. I don't want a potential competitor to any company I work for. Look at you. Yeah, stop those cogs turning, motherfucker.
I'm just imagining you. Welcome to today's episode of Sensitive Conversations with me, Richard Lewis. And first I'll be talking to a man from the Midlands who's very depressed. His wife just left him.
Yeah.
Sensitive Conversations.
Early afternoon radio show,
Yeah, I know. So why did she bloody leave you, Jim? Yeah, it'll be good, won't it, right? So anyway, point is, I don't want a fucking company having access to that type of shit, having those types of permissions, right? But I also do want a cheat-free environment. What's the happy fucking medium, especially if we take away admins' powers to ban people manually based on what they think is outrageous bullshit? So you're absolutely right. I have had a lot of sympathy for Cevo. Have they handled things correctly? Not in a lot of cases. But when you're in the absurd situation like those, what were they called? Planet OG.
Planet OG or something.
Yeah, Planet OG. You are watching some of the most obvious cheating cunts, like not even trying to hide it, thinking it's hilarious, deliberately throwing away rounds to drag it out so they can get mad HLTV, KPDs and stuff. And I'm watching these guys, and now, of course, we're not cheating, wrecking some Danish team. And the madness was the ban kicked in on the last round of the last game when the Danes won, and it reset the bracket. So those Danes have had like a fucking full tournament run. Nah, you're back here now, cunt. There was so much wrong with it. But at the end of the day, what else can they do? You've got to focus your anger on the right people. And that's the fucking cheaters.
Isn't that a good argument then against open? Like, here's the thing. We're sort of arguing there has to be somewhere between. Like, listen, let's cultivate the best semi-pros and invite them to a pro tournament. But it can't be literally open. Like, it can't just be anyone. Because as we see here, some people will just waste your time. Like those guys knew they were never going to qualify.
Yeah,
they waste everyone's time, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why they went in. They went in to disrupt people, and they'll be laughing about it on some cheat forum. And there'll be guys like on the Vax Suck subreddit going, "See, it proves that pros are cheating." That's exactly what they wanted to do, right? And they got caught, and they got banned, and they got disqualified. The system worked, maybe not as quick as we would have liked, but at the end of the day, like, what can Cevo possibly do? This is what I'm trying to say. Like, I'll criticize them for the things they got wrong. Maybe they were a little bit undermanned. Maybe a few people didn't help by saying a few things that were stupid. But ultimately, the open system is a fucking farce. It's a farce. Like, you cannot have 500 teams.
I'd love to know what's going on in that admin's mind, though. It's like, fucking stressful day. Everyone's cheating. Yeah. Fucking, we're on the reset the bracket. We're playing out all these games. The anti-cheat can't catch everyone because it's not intrusive enough. Someone messages him, "What time's our game?" "If you pay me, I'll Why are you doing that? It's already, everything's gone to shit already. Why are you doing that?
But that's what I mean. It's just the man. The fact is that's like also an outrage. Sort of.
I know that wasn't that big a deal, was it?
But it's not a good look. I can't stand by that. I think you can't joke about fucking corruption and bribery in a professional, especially with the main. But yeah, no, it's just been ridiculous. So Cevo actually put out a statement about this, which Sam will bring it up. We put it out on Reddit. A guy called Tasky, he's got the official Cevo stamp. He's a Cevo dev. And he just said, regarding the E-League Major Boston Open online qualifiers, we'd like to take a moment to clear the air about the E-League Major Boston Open online qualifiers that have taken place over the last few days. There is absolutely fault to be placed on Cevo. Technical problems with the website and client stretch our support staff thin. We have run hundreds of events successfully in the past, but the aggressive event schedule, format, and unprecedented scale of the event overloaded our systems. However, there is also a significant amount of false information making its way through the community via social media. On the first day of the event, we experienced technical issues that caused the bracket to be delayed and outages of the website and client. Our back-end servers became overloaded from the demand, which resulted in cascading failures of downstream systems. We've already taken steps in the short term to mitigate this problem, and we're going to enact a more permanent solution in the near future. With respect to the bans in the EU bracket, Cevo only bans users that have been detected by our anti-cheat system. We do not ban off demo reviews, because this is the allegations that were being made by this Romanian organization over that player. All bans must be backed by sufficient technical evidence. However, like all other anti-cheat vendors, we do not disclose the specific details that led up to it. We cannot issue a ban for a user until we are 100% certain that the data gathered is indicative of a cheater. We cannot ban a player on suspicion alone. And sometimes it takes time for the anti-cheat to gather that data before our staff can make a reliable determination. However, we also cannot prevent the bracket from advancing in a rush-style bracket event on tight deadlines. Therefore, while data is being reviewed, we have no choice but to let the games play. To delay the entire bracket for every dispute would be unfair to the rest of the teams playing. As a result, disqualifications in the EU bracket led to Cevo to come to the conclusion that matches must be overturned and the affected teams rescheduled. In our opinion, it was unacceptable for a team to proceed to the closed qualifiers for one of the largest events of the year with a forfeit win. For the CIS teams that have dropped out of the CIS Minor Championship, we were in the process of working with Valve and the VAC team to identify and clear any suspicions for these players, but a few teams have forfeited their spots on their own volition prior to any results being reached. To be fair, any team that has withdrawn their participation from the upcoming CIS Minor Championship has done so on their own. On the subject of bans, there have been multiple questions along the lines of so-and-so is banned on Face It, ESEA and other service. Why are they allowed to play? Unfortunately, bans are not shared among tournament organisers. There's no way to verify a ban on one system is legitimate or meets Cevo's technical standards for issuing an anti-cheat. If all organisers cooperated with a third-party entity and provided sufficient technical data to support suspension, such a system might work. The reality of CSGO is that no system exists like this. Therefore, we have no choice but to rely on our own systems and VAC to protect the integrity of the event. We can only offer our sincere apologies, yada, yada, yada. So here's the other thing with that point, and I've seen this point brought up a lot. First of all, if you think it's a good idea that you get banned from one league, you're banned from all leagues immediately. If you think that's a good idea, fuck you. Like, that is nonsense. That's utter nonsense. Because, again, we've seen with things like ESEA and other intrusive anti-cheat software, I could literally plant a cheat on your PC with that level of access and frame you. So me and you could have an argument over nothing. I'd be, I will fuck his career now because I'm an admin. I put it on there. We find it. We detect it. It looks genuine. So that's nonsense. Equally as well, some anti-cheats are unreliable. I know some people have thrown in manual bans and pretended it's a client ban in the past. We know that's gone on. So imagine you get manually banned again because an admin doesn't like the way you play, but you are legitimate and you've never cheated. And now you're banned from every league, every tournament ever. You know, I saw a system like this in Denmark. They used to do it. If you got banned from like an online league, you couldn't attend the LANs, which were owned by the same people that ran the leagues. Okay. I didn't like that system either, frankly. And it did hamper some careers. You know, kids who fucking cheated when they were 15 still couldn't go to LAN when they were 18 to prove themselves. You know, you get absurd situations like that. So I believe that it should be self-contained. And the final point on this issue, there's legal considerations. For example, in Germany, the laws are so stringent. If you were banned from Face It and ESL mirrored that ban, German law means you could sue ESL. So who the fuck is going to open themselves to that? So there's never going to be a ban list. I've seen a few people write columns and op-eds about this recently. Can't possibly work that way, mate. So,
but that's also why CS is such a difficult game, though, because, like, I've never heard a single story in, I guess I have in League of Legends a little bit, but because obviously they don't have open qualifiers to get the fucking LCS or whatever, do they? It's never going to actually impact anyone's life. So that's my problem, is like, Valve's already bad enough with VAC as it is. Now, apparently everyone in the world, unfortunately, the worst part is this plays right into Valve's hands. Because if you ever try talking to Valve about cheaters or match fixers, they will refuse to acknowledge that we're talking about the pro scene. They will be like, no, we treat everyone the same who plays Counter-Strike in the world. And you'll be like, yeah, well, that's great and everything, but I'm talking about these, 300 people who are called pro players, and I just want to make sure they're not match fixing and that they have reasonable things and that their careers don't get fucked up, but they get punished. And they're like, no, anyone who was to match fix or to cheat would get the same punishment. It's like, it's not pragmatic, is it? You can't just have this ridiculous, like, one principle that applies to everyone in the whole world. So this is just another obvious problem with having an open qualifier system.
Yeah. I mean, I think moving forward, like I say, I think we need to come up with a better solution. I don't know what it would look like, but I definitely think there should be some minimal criteria. Teams formed specifically for a qualifier of a road to a major. I think that there's, they might be legitimate players or whatever, but fuck them, unfortunately. There's got to be a line drawn to stop situations like this, to help Cevo and other tournament organisers. Because, look, we all want the same thing. We want an amazing professional pyramid where amateurs still have the opportunity to mix it up with the pros, maybe have those miracle runs, those great stories, maybe get within sniffing distance of the major, maybe even get to the minor itself. Who even knows, right? Like, we need to have those stories and opportunities for the benefit of the sport. But what we absolutely can't do is have situations where it's Uncle Tom Cobley and all can fucking just rock up and play. And yeah, you're going to get fucking teams who are literally coming in to cheat. You're going to get people being added to a roster last minute. Like, we discovered him in pugging. Oh, he just so happens to be the one with the shaky fucking aim and the god tier scores.
I've got a question for you, Rich. Here's like an obvious one that does blow my mind for a qualifier like this. I realise there could be some very extreme circumstances where this might be fine, but why is anyone who added their account 7 days ago allowed to play in this qualifier? Isn't that like wouldn't something like that be a fairly reasonable thing to figure out, you know? Like, here's an idea. You announce the qualifier a month in advance. Anyone added a few days before, you can't use that account.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there should be loads of ways around it, but, you know, loads of criteria put in place. But unfortunately, you're dealing with the reality of we've got 500 teams just signed up. We've got to filter through that. I mean, there was people even demanding that Cevo manually seed a 500 team open. What fucking planet are you on? What planet? Like, seriously, think about it. I saw, like, some UK player tweeted out, was it Oleski? I can't remember. Anyway, some UK player who plays for Harvard or whatever fucking tweeted out saying, yeah, we've been seeded 125th. Sound. Right.
But we're actually 115th. This is fucking outrageous.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? No,
that's that level, isn't it?
Yeah. Where actually are you? So what if you're 80th? It's an open bracket 500 team fucking qualifier. And you want one fucking guy like the precogs in fucking Minority Report in a bath. Just hooked up like... Your actual rank is 92. Like, fuck this, mate. It's ridiculous. What do people want?
How is anyone supposed to do that? Come on. Well, not only that, this is how people change how they complain, Rich. Right, when I'm like, why don't we have seeding of majors? They're like, but how would you know if he's 9th or 10th? Then they're like, let's do a 500 team open qualifier. Why aren't these all ranked in exactly the right order? Please.
The whole thing, like, I saw so many threads wrecking Cevo, and I'm like, guys, are you being fucking real here? Do you know what a 500 team open qualifier actually functions like? And you want one guy to like rank all of the back in 3 months ago, this dog shit team played this dog shit.
They literally want Rich it to be like 12 angry men. They're like, you just have all these experts in a room. Oh, but the thing is, in the ESL Premier though, like, fuck, you've won me over. Right, it took 4 hours, but that's one team's rank decide. Like,
yeah, I know.
How did you do this for 500? Also, here's another factor, right? So you're running a 500 team qualifier, and then there's all pro players like, I've had to play for 9 hours. Well, it can't take 3 months, can it? It has to all be done in the next 2 days.
That's what I mean. Like, it's literally, we got to go. We got to start playing the games. People know in advance that there's going to be cheaters and disqualifications and forfeit wins and server crashes. So we all know that. So we can't spend a week fucking seeding the teams to your satisfaction just because you might happen to know somebody who plays on one of them. Actually, they had a good result against them. They're in ESCA main, I'll have you. Fuck off. It doesn't matter. It's a fucking number. Shut the fuck up and beat somebody, you cunts. That's it, isn't it? It's like, man, it blew my fucking mind. Like, I really felt sorry for a lot of the Cevo guys. Like, really did. Because it was clear they were understaffed for something of this, like, magnitude. The fucking downtime fucking didn't help at all. They got pro players, like, with actual reach playing in this now, wrecking them on every decision. You got players who look blatantly bullshit. And then you've got fucking, Invictus, whatever the fuck they were called. Literally... I saw threads on Reddit, right, with accounts in there, like literally just signed up to Reddit, like 1 minute old account. This is an outrage. Is this happened? Romania? Like fucking just blasting everyone, people getting downvoted and stuff. People were even messaging me saying, look at some of these accounts because they're blatant sock puppets.
Oh, I loved it when they did that thing. We will have an official statement coming. Who even are you?
Yeah.
How about it's better have a fucking bio in it on who you are.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Can your official statement just be who the fuck you are, please? Like 100 Twitter followers and you're talking about like the corruption in esports has affected us and held us down for too long. What the fuck? And you had a dodgy player to your roster 6 days before the qualifier. Fuck you. And messaging me, spamming me with it, Richard. Here's the other thing. I just want to say this, right? I don't work for Cevo. And I work as a contributor.
It is the E-League, major E-League, E-League.
I work as a contributing editor for Turner Sports and a desk host for E-League. That is my job. That is my role. Yes, I give advice and guidance before we make decisions, talk about trends in the industry, occasionally sit down and have meetings, typically once a week. What do you want me to do? Guys, call up the president of the network. Like, listen, guys, Invictus Google.
Listen, Mr. E-League, yeah. No, I'm not calling again to explain why we should host the finals at 4 p.m. for Germany and then different times for all other people for the final, but on TV still. But wait a second, but not on TV because they want to watch it on Twitch with the broadcast. In fact, can we cancel TV? And also, where do you want this team ranked? What do you mean, who am I? Richard Lewis, E-League, shit.
Imagine it. Listen, Ted. Listen, Ted, I don't know if you've heard of this fucking Romanian team, but this is a big deal. Yeah, 100 followers on Twitter. We ban one of their players. What? Yeah, Counter-Strike. Yeah, E-League. Yeah. What do you mean security are on their way? Right, I'd be out of a fucking job, wouldn't I? Fucking retarded. You can only take it so far up the chain. And trust me, it's not like people haven't been aware of it. But why have I got to fucking put on my Superman outfit and fucking fly to the rescue just because some Romanian shit had got banned? What the fuck? Can I have a night off, please, internet? Can I just go to bed and have some sleep once? It's fucking mad. So many messages about it. I'm like, listen, if he got banned by Cevo's anti-cheat software, I 100% stand by it. You were a cheating rat. End of discussion. That's it. That's all there is to talk about.
Here's the problem, though. You know what the next level of Project Mayhem-esque trolling will be? Just infiltrate that Cevo banning crew, start firing off some bans at random, start fucking with people. That's the next level of how to... Basically, if you just want to push society into some state of extreme nihilism where there's no hope left that anything can be good, do that.
It's just bonkers, mate. So... I stand with Cevo. Like I do feel sorry for them, mate. I think they got wrecked on for a bunch of reasons, and it's not as if the community in isolation as a snapshot ever has that fucking big picture awareness, did he? So anyway, here's another story that I know you like to talk about. So the French journalist Nel.
Yes, well, I don't really know him personally, but I'm familiar with his work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he has said that sources have said to him that Seized, who made a tweet in between where he said, I am apparently a problem and I am soon to be fixed.
Unnecessarily passive-aggressive.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Like, well, all right, sounds like you're about to get clipped by a fucking hitman or something. But
I love tweets like that as well, where it's sort of like, it almost says something without saying anything at all. It's like, you know what? I'm sick of people who just don't keep their word. Just leave it at that. Like, walk out. Why are you doing that?
All the mad tweets going, just when you thought you could bloody trust people.
Then even better.
How vague is it?
Yeah, then when you're like, what are you talking about this player? And they're like, why do people bloody speculate on what I'm like?
I know.
Can't win, can you?
So anyway, according to Nell, after that tweet, like people in Na'Vi got a bit upset about it, and Seized had said he wants Na'Vi to leave him. He wants Na'Vi to let him go. He wants to leave Na'Vi because there's too much pressure and he can't cope with playing for them anymore. So what apparently that tweet was like a form of like self-sabotage. And Simple had said on stream that he didn't think he was very professional in saying what he said, which, by the way, if Simple's lecturing you on professionalism, a man who has done some fairly raw things in the past, can I borrow that knife? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just want to wear it in a game. Like, all right, sound mate.
Germans. You said Germans. I think we all know where that one went.
Yeah, we all know where that one went, mate. So there you go. If he's telling you to fucking simmer down, you're probably out of order.
Also, he also said within that statement, by the way, Simple, he said, it's the kind of thing I would have posted when I was 17. You have to be young, Rich, because you see, to him, he's only like 19 or 20 now. So to him, being 17 is ages ago, So that's a pretty solid amount of his life ago. To us, it's like, what you mean, 2 years ago?
Yeah, like, exactly.
I used to be fucking bad, me. I tell you what, when I was 17, 18, I'd post some stuff that, quite frankly, was retarded. But now, of course, I'm a reasonable individual. I've reformed.
That was like what Ricegum said after that iDubbbz video. He was like, yeah, I did say that ridiculous thing to a rape victim when I was young. Year ago, of course, last year. Like, fuck me, mate. Well, how much personal growth can you experience in 12 months,
While playing games like a motherfucker all the time, of course.
So, so I couldn't believe that. But anyway, so apparently he's fucking trying to basically force his way out of the team. I just wanted to get your opinion on this, and then we'll do the
that is outrageous.
Questions.
Think about this.
Yeah.
Like, remember, he was kicked from the team. He was kicked, and everyone, including people in Na'Vi, thought he was shit. Everyone. So it's not like he only now fell off when he got back in the team and now it's gone badly and now the pressure's there. The pressure was always there, mate. I mean, maybe he wasn't paying attention, I don't know. But he got to come back. So first of all, if you willingly come back under those circumstances and you are then going to quit the team, by the way, right before all these fucking EU minor and stuff where we can now no longer get any players from that system to come and play. Actually, I think let me think. No, you can't, if you remember, because that was the Kirby thing when they went to Australia. So we will now have no option as to who to get. So that makes it seem like you're not just trying to get out the team, you're trying to sabotage the team so that when they're fucked up completely, you can be like, maybe you should have all been nicer to me. Like, what sort of 14-year-old kid sees that? Come on, mate. This is someone who, like, I agree people probably have gone too harsh on him. He's just playing bad Counter-Strike. Fine, right? Yeah, you probably should be removed, but I'm sure people phrase it in a much harsher way than that. I can sympathise with a lot, but fucking over the whole team, that's outrageous. It's the same thing. I had the same problem with Guardian when he left Na'Vi, where he then reveals he wasn't fucking playing at boot camps and all the rest of it. Well, at that point in time, you're a cunt as well. I don't care if Simple was being the worst teammate ever. You were sabotaging the rest of your team as well. You're also, he's being an arsehole. You're also being an arsehole. So in this scenario, I don't know how Cease can possibly justify wanting to force his way out like this when he willingly came back like 2 months ago.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It makes me wonder about life with Zeus again. I come back to that always because I've seen it with my own eyes. Like, the guy is not, he doesn't look fun to be around when they're losing and things aren't going well. Fuck it. I mean, he gives people the fucking hairdryer treatment when they're winning. You know, like, he's pretty wild, isn't he? So I think, honestly, I think they've completely misjudged this. I think they were like, yeah, what we need is an authoritarian in-game leader to come back and, like, get the troops in line. That was the last thing they needed. They were already fucking traumatized from his last run there. They've been playing shit. He's had to go in-game leading. That completely tanked his game. And now him and Flamey are just like, every time they hear fucking shouting, you know. And I think, honestly, I think that team's completely done. I think they're fucked.
Also, I realise it seems convenient to say it now, but when you look at what's happened in Na'Vi now, the storyline gave too much credit to Zeus for what he did in Gambit. Like, yes, he is a primary person who should have received the credit, but he could have done all the same shit he did. And if Hobbit doesn't magically turn into like a top 30 player in the world out of fucking nowhere, and if Adren doesn't suddenly like polish his entire game to be one of the best all-round players in the entire world, none of that shit happens. You're not even getting close to a major. So yeah, he did a lot as an in-game leader, but people thought he was just going to walk in and fix everything in Na'Vi. So he's going to walk in and tomorrow Cease isn't having problems. And now Flamey does suddenly activate all his talent. And now, in fact, actually the saddest thing is the only guy who wasn't in that bad shit before was Edward, and he's now gone downhill as well. So again, this can't all be simple. This can't all be that he's the most toxic player ever. Some of it's got to fall on Zeus. And also, obviously, the players individually, you have to bear responsibility for being a bad player.
Yeah. But I mean, is there anything they can do at this point? You know, what happens if they lose Seized? You know, we keep talking about this, like, they're going to bring electronic, they're going to get players in. No. I mean, there's no intimations that they're actually even actively looking at the moment.
And you've got to do it quick. Remember, if for electronic, you have to get him before the major qualifier.
Yeah. So how's that going to happen? It's not, is it? So, I mean, now they're in a really fucked up position. Like, Na'Vi could, you know, go the same way as, like, other teams where they've been, you know, sure, they've had problems. Can they get a team together to even be involved in any of these tournaments? Well, if C's literally wants out, he can just put his tools down, can't he? He don't have to play. You can't make him play. It's a fucking nightmare. They've completely shit the bed, Na'Vi, the way this has been run. And I'll tell you another thing as well. Simple will not fucking tank his career. Like, it will be a travesty if Simple, the CS he's playing right now, went down with this fucking ship.
Yeah.
He needs to get out, like, in my opinion, because I don't think Na'Vi know how to handle stars. I don't think they have a clear idea about what leadership looks like. They clearly can't even fucking keep themselves together as a cohesive unit anymore, sniping at each other on social media, which goes back to when Guardian left. What the fuck is going on? Who's running this ship?
No one knows, right?
Yeah, nobody knows, and it's meant to be Zeus. Hardly reflective of his fucking leadership qualities, is it? That you've got a guy, off the fucking reservation talking about how he's a problem and he'll be fixed and he wants out and he's trying to self-sabotage like that.
Also, let's be real, right? I have to call out the community on this. You literally talked for 8 to 9 months about how Na'Vi were all idiots for cutting Zeus and about how you would have been so much better if he'd have stayed, and look what he's done in Gambit. Not a fucking peep about how terribly he is playing individually in Na'Vi and how terribly the team that he controls is playing. Is he just never allowed to be criticised because everyone bigged him up for months and months? You can be wrong, If you're wrong, you can just say, right, like I'll give you an example. I obviously picked G2 to beat Cloud9. Have you heard me in this episode say, well, they should have, they bloody Cloud9 shit? No, I've absolutely, that's an example of where it's clear to me, guess what? I was wrong on that one. Fair play, let's move on. Now I know how I was wrong and will now update my conclusions accordingly,
So right, that's the final point, and then we'll blast these fucking questions out from all our patrons. So Matesius, one of our $100 donators, says, if FaZe carry on being this dominant, what is the best team a Danish shuffle could form if they wanted to make a team to beat FaZe?
See, that's a tough one because the big problem is neither Astralis or North are bad. They're actually both very good teams. So it's already a massive gamble if you start mashing these lineups together. I feel like you could actually end up with a worse team, because they're both so functional. So the big problem is I feel like logically the only thing you could only justify is maybe make like one move. And so the one that I would say is the only one I can think would be reasonable is I would like to maybe see Config swap with Kirby and go into Astralis. That's about the only one I can think of without doing something ridiculous where I have to reimagine a whole lineup. I think that would be a pretty good team. But the problem is, I don't necessarily know whether you have to sort of smash that red box and get the emergency thing out yet. I think you wait a few more tournaments.
What about Glaive, IGL, right. Device, obviously, Zipnix, Config, Valde?
See, that would be a very good lineup, but the problem is, like, one of the strengths, I think, of Astralis is that they managed to keep together Device, Zipnix, and Dupree for so long. Because actually, here's the thing. In this last few months, Dupree has just actually, like, blown my mind. Because I already knew he was one of the best players of all time. I already could see he was an amazing entry fragger back in the day, and he did great things. But he's reinvented his whole role in Astralis, and he's actually very good at the moment. He was one of the main reasons why they took fucking care of as Fnatic and C9 in this tournament. He's fantastic at that, like, sort of semi-lurk role that he plays now. He's so good on overpass. He's a big part of why they're so good on the T side of that map. The problem is it's hard for me to justify cutting him, whereas Valde is very good, but he's still young in his career. That's what I mean at the moment. It's one of the few, that just shows how talented Denmark is, isn't it? It's actually one of the few scenes where there's not an obvious five, No,
but I mean, then you get into, like, all the periphery players and the fringe players that can maybe do something as well. It is mental. Like, people are like going, oh, bloody hell, why would you cut Dupree? He did go off in the middle of the year, guys. I'm sorry. His stats did taper off. He was having a tough time. I'm just saying no one is above reproach. Yeah, he fucking bossed it at E-League, no doubt about it. But, I think then if you start talking about it in firepower perspective, what have you got? Can you have Zipnix and Valde on the same team?
Yeah, I agree. That might be a problem there. If anything, you probably want Valde in Zipnix's spot, right? Here's the thing. But
Zipnix is one of the best clutches in the world.
I would say that actually Denmark's the only region where I don't think we have to do this. Like, it's actually the one where if you look throughout the years, they do a pretty good job actually of figuring out when it's finished with a lineup and cycling the talent. I think that's because they've got so many good in-game leaders. But if you look throughout history, they never just keep one lineup for like 2 years. They do swap it out and they don't keep going back to the old mistakes. Like, they found all this success without Karrigan coming back to Astralis, without Cage and B coming back. They managed to reshape into teams that gradually get better over time. So I think, obviously it's a good hypothetical to play with, but I feel like that's one of the few scenes that in real life will work itself. Like, it's not like the scenario we're talking about now where it's like everyone in the world knows Electronic should be on Na'Vi, but he isn't and probably won't be,
Yeah.
It's not that ridiculous.
So the next question we've got from one of our... hang on. That isn't a question.
That's it.
We only had the one question this time.
Yeet.
Fucking hell, well, you guys don't pay for it, you don't redeem your coupons, you don't get your discount. That's how it works. All right, then. Well, I guess that's it. People are spamming the chat saying NIP didn't qualify for the major. As it looks like we'll be doing another episode of this sooner rather than later. We better save some topics to talk about, so we'll hit that up next time. All that remains to be done then is to thank all of the people that make this show possible, which are, of course, our patrons. Chris and Win, Dean Tanglis, Big Hungry, Mateus Piatka.
A few seconds left here, 7-6 left. Freiburg goes for the kill, he's going to pick it up. If Just Exists survives, he's going to win the round, there's no time. Oh my God, Freiburg, are you kidding me? They win the round because of it. Yeah, now Freiburg is going to be walking around.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to By the Numbers, the realest podcast in CSGO. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. My co-host is Duncan Thorin Shields. Obviously, we've been away for a while. I've been doing E-League. Duncan's been in Amsterdam doing Duncan things, watching TSM go out of Worlds and League of Legends with a 9-foot erection. So we get to come back and get to talk about Counter-Strike now, and there's plenty to talk about. I'll start with some pleasantries, Duncan, as I sound a bit like DDK here, don't I? As is common on Earth. How have you been?
Mate, I would love to see a conversation between DDK and fucking Mark Zuckerberg.
Just a few seconds left here, 7-6 left. Freiburg goes for the kill, he's going to pick it up. If Just Exists survives, he's going to win the round, there's no time. Oh my God, Freiburg, are you kidding me? They win the round because of it. Yeah, now Freiburg